Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Bristol, this beautiful building, this beautiful room. I was just saying before the meeting that we've got nothing like this in South Gloucestershire, so thank you very much to Bristol for providing a great venue like this room. For those that don't know me, I'm Councillor Matthew Riddle from South Gloucestershire, and I'm going to be chairing today's meeting as the Vice Chair of the Audit, Governance and Oversight Committee, because sadly Councillor Paul May is ill today, and so we do send Paul our best wishes for a speedy recovery. Paula would like to say a few words.
Good morning, everyone. Paula Lyons, Assistant Chief Fire Officer of Portfolio. I'm also covering for Assistant Chief Fire Officer Luke Gazzard today, who is at an NFCC meeting.
Thank you very much, Paula. We turn to the agenda. Apologies for absence. And we've had apologies from Councillors Connolly, Mohammed, sorry, my apologies. We've got apologies. We've got apologies from Councillor Kent and May, and David Powell, the independent member, and also from Councillor Mohammed. Any other apologies that need to be recorded, please? No. Okay, thank you. And welcome to those members who are here. I'll hand over to Paula now just to explain the emergency evacuation procedures. Thank you.
So there has already been a fire alarm test at 10 o'clock this morning. Therefore, if the fire alarm does go off, please make your way to the nearest exit. And the rendezvous point for ourselves will be outside of the building at on the concrete to the side of the cathedral. If you do need any assistance, one of us will support you if needed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paula. Item 3 is declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest to note? Thank you. None recorded. Item 4, we've received no items under public access. So we move on to the Chair's business on agenda item 5. So welcome again to the meeting. I hope you've all had a good journey into Bristol today, into the meeting. Just to confirm then, that this is the Audit, Governance and Oversight meeting, and it's taking place in the City Hall at Bristol. And we're also recording the meeting for the public to view on the Fire Authority YouTube channel. I'll hand over to Zoe.
Thank you. So this is just a polite reminder that this is a meeting in commitment to inclusivity and accessibility. Just to remind everybody that I am deaf and others in the room may be deaf or hard of hearing. I've got some assistive Bluetooth technology devices that are strategically placed around the room to assist me, but other things that I would just ask if you could do is ensure that wherever possible you speak one at a time, that you speak sufficiently clearly, and avoid covering your mouth when speaking, as that will really help me to participate in the meeting and hear everything that you are saying. So I appreciate your understanding and your cooperation, and if anyone has any questions, please don't hesitate to ask me.
Thank you, Zoe. So we now move on to introducing ourselves. As I've said, I'm Councillor Matthew Riddle. I represent the Severn Vale ward in South Gloucestershire, and we'll go anti-clockwise. Thank you.
Councillor Kieran Connolly, who is here. I represent Winterstoke in North Somerset.
Good morning, Councillor Oncartheni, Bath and North East Somerset.
Councillor Jane Stansfield, South Gloucestershire Council, Thornbury Ward.
Councillor David Wilcox, representing Lockleys Ward in the fine city and county of Bristol. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Matt Stacey and I'm representing on behalf of RSM, the internal auditors.
Craig Sullivan, I'm from the external auditors, Bishop Fleming.
Any other councillors? I don't see any other councillors. We'll now do officers then. Shall we go clockwise? Anti-clockwise.
Good morning, everyone. Paula Lyons, Assistant Chief Fire Officer of Portfolio.
Morning, everyone. I'm Verity Truscott, Statutory Finance Officer.
Morning, Emma Bowen, Democratic Services.
Alistair Mills, Financial Accountant.
Good morning, everybody. Steve Quinton, Area Manager responsible for prevention and protection.
Morning, Lorna Wynne-Yates, Corporate Risk Advisor.
Good morning, Helen Dunbarton, Corporate Assurance and Planning Manager.
Good morning, Mandy Peskett, Collaboration and Partnerships Manager.
And good morning, councillors and colleagues. I'm Simon Flood and I'm the Performance Manager.
Good morning all, Amber Foreman, Director of Corporate Services.
And good morning, Zoe Coombs, Clerk and Monitoring Officer.
That's great. Thank you very much for those introductions. Just a few other announcements from me. Mark Jones is now going to be retiring from the 31st of March 2026. And we'd like to thank Mark for all his hard work and support of this committee over many years and wish him a long and happy retirement. He's been replaced by David Broughton, who will be taking over the role of Head of Internal Audit at RSM, and we very much look forward to working with him. So in the meeting then, please do use your microphones when speaking, and also to try and remember to turn them off when you're not. I've already failed on that part once today. Because it's important that microphones are turned on when people are speaking to ensure that all discussion is captured on the recording of the meeting. In terms of voting, when voting is required, I'll be asking for a show of hands. I'll begin with any votes against, any abstentions, and then any votes for. And as we've already heard, our independent member is unable to attend today's meeting, but he has forwarded a number of questions, and these will be answered during the reports by the presenters. So we do thank him for those questions, and we will respond back to him after the meeting with the answers to his questions. Okay. We move on then to item 6, and I'll hand over to Zoe now about the issue of reviewing the action logs. Thank you, Zoe.
Thank you. So at the request of Councillor May particularly, it was being decided that we would just have a formal review of the outstanding actions from the logs from previous meetings. There are some outstanding actions from meetings of the 19th of June 2024, the 20th of June 2025, and the 19th of September 2025 from this committee. And so we were hoping that we may be able to potentially close some of these actions, or certainly look to what further action is required with regard to them all. So if I can perhaps take them in turn, I know that Paula is also going to assist with this one. Following some guidance and some direction and observation from Luke Gazzard. So the first action arises from the 19th of June 2024 meeting. It was in relation to the annual report on whistleblowing, anti-money laundering, anti-fraud and corruption, external complaints procedure, employee grievance, bullying, harassment and discipline. And the action was in relation to, in 23-24, there were no reports of whistleblowing, money laundering or fraud or corruption, and a question was asked as to what assurance could this committee have that these policies were adequately communicated to the wider staff. Members at the meeting were advised that the policy was currently being redrafted and had been referenced and highlighted as part of the implementation of the confidential reporting line with Crime Stoppers. Anti-fraud, corruption and money laundering policies were referenced in the Constitution, but were not regularly communicated to staff unless there were major changes. The service was looking to highlight and bring those policies into the onboarding process, and the acting head of HR agreed to take an action to review the communication strategy around that with the Statutory Finance Officer and Procurement Manager. And we have had an update of the 4th of December from Alison Short, the Head of People Services, and she reminds us that whistleblowing is now included within the onboarding process and is highlighted within both the culture section of the intranet as well as the Dignity and Respect Toolkit. There are detailed FAQs on the intranet for staff to refer to, which include multiple questions and answers about confidential reporting, that's processes, alternatives and reassurance. So the question for this committee is, are you content that this action can be closed on the basis that these topics are now picked up within the Avon Fire and Rescue Service intranet and onboarding processes?
Any questions or comments on that item? Yeah, David.
Thank you, Chair. Can we have that in a written form distributed to members, because it's not part of the meeting pack, so we've not had a chance to review this data.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. A very good point, and we'll certainly do that. Yep. Is that fair to say about all of them, Zoe?
Yep, certainly they can be distributed.
Yeah, that might be easier than trying to deal with them all now. I'll take your advice on that.
Thank you. We can certainly do that. There are a number of items, however, that I think I would advise that potentially could be closed off formally today, as they relate to actions from the last meeting of this committee in September of 2025 regarding reports that it was agreed at that meeting would be brought to the March meeting of 2026 that are that's in relation to the productivity review, the results. And at that meeting, Luke suggested that to provide some tangible data that he could bring a report to the March 26 meeting. So if everyone is content that that simply goes on to the agenda for March 26, then that can be closed from the action lists.
Everybody happy with that, members? Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, lovely. And then the other one that I would propose that could be easily closed today, it also comes from the September meeting in relation to updating the Fire Control Culture Review Consultancy report. And the observation in respect of that is that this could be managed through the HMIC FRS update that's being completed by Ian Potter. So this is in relation to how staff have reacted to changes. It was an independent review which brought greater scrutiny. So whether that can be closed off from this meeting, as it's now being picked up by Ian as part of the HMI CFRS response.
Members, are you happy for that to be taken off, seeing as it's been picked up? Yeah, thank you.
Then of the other actions, certainly I'll ask Emma to circulate those, and then hopefully we can look to close those off.
Okay, no, that's very, very helpful, Zoe, just to try and clear some of these actions out of the way. Obviously, if they, in the right way, obviously. So we look forward to receiving that paper and the detail of the other actions that are still on the list. Okay, thank you very much, Zoe. We'll now move to item 7, and this is the minutes of the ordinary meeting of this committee held on the 19th of September. I actually wasn't there, so I'm looking to members who were there to propose and second that they are a true and correct record.
I'm happy to propose.
Yeah. Vote on this. Any votes against? Any abstentions? votes in favour, please? And that's been carried. Thank you.
Sorry, Chair, is that the...
Then, secondly, but thank you for reminding me, Emma, we'll move on to the confidential minutes of that meeting. Again, could I see a proposer? And a seconder? Thank you, David. A seconder. And again, any votes against? Any abstentions? And votes for, please. And that's been carried. Thank you. On those minutes. So we now move on to the first substantial item on the agenda, which is performance report for the current financial year to the 30th of September. And this is going to be kindly presented by Simon Flood. And this is an item for approval. Also, Steve Quinton is here to answer any questions. So it's a bit of a double act. So I'll let you get on. Thank you, Simon, and thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning again, councillors and colleagues. So in front of you have the performance report covering the first 6 months of this current financial year, so to the end of September. As usual, it's supported by two appendices. The first one is the scorecard, which is all of our corporate measures detailed out under our 6 key objectives. And the second one at Appendix 2 is our target tracker, which covers some of those same objectives and is produced for display at stations and also at Avon level, but it's the same information just in a more graphic format. Okay, so what we do today is basically concentrate upon the areas of underperformance, because those are the areas that are presenting the biggest risk to us as a fire authority, if you like. So we set out at the start of each year what we're setting out to achieve, and what we're looking at today is the areas of underperformance, and we're setting out to you from the metric owner what we're planning to do to try and get us back on target. Okay, the other thing I just wanted to say from it, and unfortunately my copy is in black and white, so it's not quite as good to say, but if you notice, most of the scorecard is showing green. So the vast majority of the metrics were meeting the targets, and so managing the risk of not meeting those targets. Okay, so looking at the areas of underperformance, there are currently 5 of those on the scorecard. Under the prevention, we've got 2 fire metrics, one about trying to reduce deliberate primary fires, and the second one about trying to reduce deliberate secondary fires. Also under prevention, we've got about completion of home fire safety visits, which is our key intervention to try and reduce fires in the home, which is the biggest risk with regard to fire death for us. Under protection, we've got completion of site-specific risk inspections, and we have a metric to try and make sure that the ones we completed, we have a repeat date of when we're due to visit them again, and to make sure that we do those visits within the repeat date. And the last one is about under improving our service, which is about our policies and about ensuring that our policies are in date. So those are the 5 metrics that are currently off target, and we'll have a look at those and talk to you about the mitigations that we have in place, try and make sure we're going to meet those targets and ask for your approval of those mitigations. So the first ones to look at are the 2 about prevention of fires, deliberate primary and deliberate secondary. This is on page 18 of your pack, and paragraphs 5.1 to 5.4. So basically it sets out there what we're planning to do with regard to trying to get this back on target. You can see if you look at the target tracker, the 2 graphs in relation to these are on the left-hand side. The deliberate primary fires is the top graph, and deliberate secondary fires is the lower graph on the left-hand side. And you can see we've had some considerable periods of high numbers per month within the year. A lot of this, as it sets out in the paper, is unfortunately seasonality, which is a big impact upon this. And we also get information from the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government with regard to fires, and they produce this on a quarterly basis, and the most up-to-date information we have from them is 12 months to the end of June. And what they have said is that nationally, fire incidents are up by 28% over that 12-month period. So it kind of reflects, unfortunately, what we've seen in Avon as well, that we've seen an increase in fire incidents. But say in the paragraphs there, we've set out what we're planning to do to try and mitigate this in future. So the difficulty is we can't now influence what has happened in the past, but certainly we're talking about things like having a heat-ready trigger plan for future periods of hot weather where we may see an increase in the number of fires. And there's also some information in paragraph 5.4. We've had a large number or an increase in fires in prisons, mainly due to prisoners tampering with vapes, and it gives you information there about what we have done with the prison service to try and make it that those won't be able to happen in future. So those are the things that we've looked at under deliberate primary and secondary fires, and our proposal is we're going to treat them, and the information is there about what we're going to treat. Okay, the next one to look at is about completion of home fire safety visits, and again that's on page 18 of your pack, and is paragraphs 5.5 to 5.7. We've got a 3-point plan to try and improve our performance, which is on paragraph 5.7, and really what we're trying to do is introduce a programme of scheduled revisits for people who are most at risk. So that is ones where we visited, we've identified that there are risk factors, so we are factoring in a re-inspection programme to make sure that those people we've identified at most of risk we keep in regular contact with. We're also looking at improving our process for undertaking post-incident fire prevention activity. So that's where we've attended a fire incident or an emergency incident, and it gives us the opportunity for the near neighbours, because they've had an incident in their neighbourhood, to intervene with them and to offer a home fire safety visit. And we found that that is one of our key mechanisms for basically getting in and helping people when they've had a fire in their community. So that's one of the things that we're looking to do, is to improve that process to make sure that it always happens and is always recorded. And we're also in contact with other fire and rescue services to try and adopt some of the best practice, because we recognise that some fire and rescue services are doing more home fire safety visits, so we're in contact with them to try and find out what processes they have in place that is allowing them to achieve that we could potentially do within Avon Fire. Okay. The next area of underperformance is about site-specific risk inspections. So these are something that we do with our fire crews, where we go out to premises that we've identified as being higher risk, and we look at improving fire safety in those premises, but we also make sure that our firefighters are aware that if there is an emergency incident in those premises, we have good information that will allow us to keep our firefighters safe and effectively deal with the incident in that premises. And we have a software package that provides that information to the crews when we're on the way to the incident in both a text and a graphic format, so they're aware of the risks before they arrive, which is helping to keep them safe and helping them to manage the incident more effectively. Relatively new process for us with doing this, and as I said earlier, what we're looking to do is to the premises that we've identified and visited, looking to make sure that we revisit within a target period. Okay, so unfortunately we're off target with doing those, and it sets out in paragraphs 5.8 to 5.10 our thoughts on mitigating that and getting us back on target. And really I think what we're saying is we've been a little bit over ambitious with setting the targets, and we haven't properly risk scored the premises to make sure that we're concentrating upon the ones who are most at risk, to make sure those are done first. So it sets out there what we're looking to do to try and reset ourselves and to look better at rescoring the risk of the properties and make sure that in future we are visiting them within the periods that we've set out. Okay, and the last area that we're going to look at that is off target is about our policies in date. Our target is to have 95% of our policies that are in date, and it shows on the scorecard that at the end of September we were on 75%, which is 45 out of 60. So the portfolio director, which is Paula, has set out there in paragraphs 5.12 to 5.16 what we are going to do to try and get ourselves back into target. And again, the main thing there is about prioritising the policies to give us a bit more, if you like, emphasis on making sure that the most risk ones are in date, but with an objective of making sure that we do what we're saying we're going to do. So if we're going to review them within X date, then we are going to do that. So those are the areas of underperformance I just wanted to cover. To say what we're asking the committee to do is to approve the recommendations for the mitigations of the risk. We have had some questions from the independent member about this. Firstly, he asked about home fire safety visits, and he asked about the barriers to completing home fire safety visits and plans to improve. So if I could pass over to Steve, he'll just give you some more information about that.
Yeah, thank you, Simon. And again, good morning, everybody. If I may, I'll briefly touch on some of the aspects of the paper as well, if that's okay. And then you can grill me, please. Yeah, home fire safety visits. So very similar, we set ourselves a very ambitious target many years ago of trying to achieve 12,000 visits within a 5-year plan. However, I think realistically, what we did, we based those targets in 2 ways, and we deliver home fire safety visits via our specialist community safety workers that will deliver high-risk visits to the most vulnerable, and then our operational crews will complete risks to occupants that present a medium risk, a slightly lower vulnerability risk, but still susceptible to risk of fire. And there's a number of metrics and targets that we have locally within service to look at that. One aspect around our community safety workers, they're performing very well against that area because they work Monday to Friday. Their job is predominantly just to deliver home fire safety visits. A challenge with our operational crews is all the other bits that come with operational crews capacity, incidents, training and the like. In reality, the targets which were set by myself are still realistic, but based on our current capacity, unrealistic. You'll know from the last meeting, as mentioned in the actions around our capacity and capability and the productivity piece that we're doing. We had a meeting, if it's okay, we had a meeting on Wednesday to review some figures recently, and when we come to set our targets for next year, we will see a more realistic home fire safety visit target based on what our actual capacity is. We've never done that piece of work around productivity to actually say, well, this is the working day, and this is what we break it down to, and this is what we can assign to each particular activity. So that will present some challenges, but also it also presents opportunities, because what that does allow us to do is to then also look at what is our biggest risk and set metrics appropriately for those. And I'd like to come back to this committee and every committee and say I need more staff, and if you could just sign that off, that'd be lovely. But it'll allow us to be more specific, so we will see targets become more intuitive based on actually what our capacity is. My job then is making sure that that capacity is used in the best way. And by targeting the most highest risk. So the positive news, and whilst we are not meeting our current target, since 2020 we have seen an increase year on year in the number of home fire safety visits we are completing, and that's the positive. So our actual activity is getting better, and our referrals from our partner agencies are also increasing. And prior to COVID, we had a very good referral rate. COVID, we saw that drop off, and that's now increasing year on year. So there is still a positive that the performance is getting greater each year. The other positive is against the home HMI, His Majesty's Inspectorate stats about visits to the most targeted, we are in the top 10 of the country. So between 90 to 94% of our visits are to those most at risk. And so whilst I'm here trying to defend not meeting a target, I'm also here to promote the fact that we are delivering quality over quantity. There are very few of us in this room that would receive a home fire safety visit based on vulnerability criteria, and that's quite right, because we are able to purchase our own detectors. We will still provide advice in line with our legislation, but actually having crews or our specialist workers attend to deliver those bespoke services, that is what we should be targeting. So I take great comfort from those national picture about the fact that we are delivering quality visits to a smaller number, but they are most targeted. So that's where we are, and I think we'll come back in February time and March with those figures from ACFO Gazard with a better picture of what actually we were looking at as a capacity from us to be able to deliver. As Simon touched on, there is the 3-point plan which we're looking at, and already, and I'll shamelessly use Councillor Connolly over there. There was a fire in Weston-super-Mare recently in Longridge Way, and I received an email via somebody else around access issues, and that's part of our work as well, is ensuring we can actually get to those. There was a fire in a property in Weston-super-Mare, and what we do as part of that post-incident activity is now set minimum expectations about what activity should happen after that incident, and that is knocking on doors, that's delivering leaflets, providing advice to those that are deemed at risk because they've been exposed to a fire. And we have already, since reintroducing this back in November and setting those minimum expectations, we have seen a significant increase already from our operational staff in that post-incident activity. And that will also then lead to referrals to onward agencies, and in particular, that particular case, safeguarding was raised as well, and we can carry out that referral process to make sure they get the help and support they need. So that's one aspect. And the final bit, against our partners, it's always challenging when other fire and rescue services are outperforming your own, and it's not a great place to be. But part of that research is looking, actually, are we comparing apples with apples? So, for instance, colleagues in Devon and Somerset, we have 4 specialist community safety workers that deliver day in, day out. Devon and Somerset have 19. So their delivery model is different to ours because of their resources, but clearly they're able to achieve more. So by exploring the top 5 performers in our family group, we can then look, are we actually comparing apples with apples? And if we're not, what can we do differently? And shamelessly, what can we actually pinch from them that might help? So it's not an improving place to be. We're not achieving the target that was set. That target will change to become a more intuitive target. But I'm proud to say the work we are doing is getting better, and we are reaching those most vulnerable. And I'll talk for England, but we've only got 2 hours. So I'll stop there, and I'll ask any questions.
Thank you, Steve. Simon, are there other points to go through with the...
Yeah, there were 2 other, thank you, Steve.
Yeah,
2
thank
other
you, Steve,
questions from the independent member. First one was about a timeline for restoring PDR compliance, which, if you look on the scorecard, the PDRs is the under the investing our staff, and it's the last metric on there, and we are on target for it. So we set a target of having 95% of our staff having a PDR, so a personal development review within date, and at the end of September we were on 97.3, so it is on target. There are 22 of our staff who don't currently have a PDR, and we were doing everything in our capacity to make sure those are happening. So I know Celine Gallagher, who's our head of our learning development team, has written personally to the managers of those staff to make sure that there isn't something we're not aware of that's preventing it from happening, and to make sure those are happening. So we are on target, but we're doing everything we can to make sure we get to 100%, which is really where we want to be. And the last question we had was, given 25% of our policies are out of date, how are we going to prioritise the order in which policies are now brought up to date? And if I can hand over to Paula, she'll give you a little bit of information about that one.
Thank you, Simon. So yeah, to be clear, policies are a priority for us, but I have some very positive news, which is as of last night, we are 90.1% in date, and obviously going in the right direction. So just to reiterate some of what has already been said on page 20, 5.12 to 5.16. Some of this was around policy management and the responsibility. We have been a little bit under establishment, but we now have the 2 business support officers in place, so that's helping us to deal with some of the administration behind this. We did ask for a review to be undertaken, and that has now been done to make sure this is more streamlined. And in addition to that, as part of the Continuous Improvement Manager's report that comes to SLT, which is now monthly, they also include policies within that, so we've got much greater oversight. And then just looking at 5.15 to 5.16, these are categorised by priority. We've now started to look at risk ratings around these. Some of them are out of date because of transition period. For example, some were being consolidated or rewritten, and the new policies weren't yet done, so it just tipped them into that out-of-date sort of part. But what we did was we held an extraordinary meeting. We were able to put some back in date. We're also looking at an electronic solution to avoid meeting in person and improve efficiencies. And we're also at the moment just looking to sign off a terms of reference around a joint representative body meeting to, again, just be more efficient in the way that we process our policies. So hopefully we can maintain this and continue on our trajectory towards 95% in date.
Thank you very much, Paula and Steve and Simon. Any questions or comments from members, please? Thank you, David.
Thank you, Chair. Can I ask some questions about the site-specific risk inspections? What is our current frequency that's mentioned in 510? So I assume we were proposing to move to it, but for instance, how often do we visit the very high-risk buildings, please?
I'll give it a go. It doesn't sit with me, but a rough estimate, depending on whether it's high risk or low risk, it's between 12 months to up to about 2 years. I can get that information properly to you, though, all right, just to confirm that. But the challenge was that as we've identified more and more premises, again, that comes to be, we've created an unachievable monster to try and go back. What we have found, though, the challenge is there's no set national standard of when you should go back, and that's one thing that's been fed back to the inspectorate and nationally to the NFCC, is we would welcome that sort of direction, because, again, some others with more resources are able to do it more frequently. So we've balanced that, in the paper, we've balanced that with trying to be more realistic within those timeframes. And also, depending on the scoring of those visits, if something particularly comes back, then it's not set in stone that we will wait 18 months, 2 years, or 3 years to go back. If something from that initial inspection suggests we need to go back sooner, we will go back sooner. And also that links into the protection department as well, that might go and do a fire safety inspection, which is slightly different than a site-specific risk information. But I can certainly get them sent to you, Councillor.
Thank you. I think that'd be really useful. And could we have some data about how many very high-risk buildings there are, how many high-risk, how many medium-risk, so we can actually gauge what level of personnel you need to meet any sorts of these requirements? Because if it does sound like other people have 19 people on their staff and we only have 5, then we need to consider what's actually happening in that space, please.
Yeah, so and forgive me if I've confused, there's a slight difference between prevention and protection and SSRI. Obviously, SSRI visits are done by our operational staff, not by our specific prevention staff. And again, Devon and Somerset, for instance, with their because they're predominantly on call, that's why they have more dedicated staff than we do, because we've got whole-time staff to do that, whereas Devon and Somerset don't. But I can certainly provide you with details around that.
So it's whole-time firefighters who would be doing the site-specific risk inspection?
Yes, that's correct,
Okay.
because the difference between a fire safety inspection, where you would look at the building and the fire safety aspects, the fire escapes, that's done by specialist protection officers. The SSRI is about firefighter safety, so where are the access and egress points, where is the gas shut off, where is the nasty chemicals, things like that. So that's why they're done by operational staff, because them visiting the sites allows them to get familiar with the site, the layout, the procedures. So that's why it's operational crews that do SSRIs.
Sorry, to follow on from that. So I can guess that some stations have more very high-risk buildings in than others. So
Yeah.
Central Bristol probably has more than any other station in
site-specific. So in relation to that type of thing, I would argue that I would say Avon is higher than Bristol. Avon has a predominantly industrial feel, so they'll do more site-specific information, risk information visits than, say, prevention work, because there's less housing there. The centre of Bristol has offices aren't really a problem for us, because people are awake and alert and you can fall out of those, but there's more high-rise in Bristol, so they'll do more protection visits. So yeah, it depends, and we do base that on numbers. So the programme of visits will be based on what their capacity there is of those stations, how many they've got. But also the key point here, stations will come across and support and carry out those SSRI visits. And that information, once it's done, is then shared across every single mobile data terminal on the front of the appliance. So where there's higher demand, there will be crossover. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I'm just a little bit confused in terms of SSRI. So are we proposing move to a longer reinspection?
Yeah, that's correct. So we originally, as Simon said, we set ourselves some very ambitious targets, what we felt was appropriate. However, as we've developed the SSRI system and we've identified more premises that fall into the relevant categories, we've had to look at the reinspection frequency and say, well, actually, we are quite within our rights and quite capable to stretch some of those reinspection frequencies. As I say, if anything, if we were to go to an incident at one of those premises in between the inspection frequency, then we're likely to update the SSRI at the same time. So whilst we're saying we're going to extend the frequency, we might still go back sooner if we get information around changes, or if we go to an incident there, then we will update the SSRI. So, but we have to manage that risk appropriately, and hence we're looking for guidance from nationally to say, well, we're doing it this way, others are doing it a different way. What there should be, if it's high risk, it should be high risk, and it should be the same frequency, whether it's in Avon or whether it's in South Yorkshire, you know. But we don't have that at the moment, so, and that's what we're lobbying for.
Thank you. So, like, given the proposed move to the longer re-inspection intervals, so what assurance can be given that this will not increase risk at high-risk premises, and how will members be kept updated on whether this change is working?
Yeah, of course. So obviously we will be reporting back through this forum and this meeting and on the scorecard around the inspection frequencies. In relation to those risks, again, those risks in those premises, there is very limited life risk in those premises because they tend to be industrial as compared to, say, a high-rise building where there's a significant life risk, where we have a different inspection frequency. So I think members can be assured by the scorecard, and obviously by sharing of good news stories. We have a number of good news stories and case studies where we've successfully done SSRI visits, where we've identified certain risks. And the BRI recently at St Michael's Hospital a few months ago, we had a fire of the solar panels on the roof. A really good a comforting message for yourselves there was the site-specific information that we had that day was used brilliantly in that we had all the details on the appliances that we were able to then go to we knew where the solar panel shut-off points were, the access points were. So I think it's cases like that where actually we've tried and tested our process in a real-life incident. Now, nobody likes a real-life incident, but we've done it, tried and tested, and I think that's real comfort. And I know that we're going to be sharing that case study with the HMI, and I'm sure we can share that case study with councillors as well. And that should go some way to provide you with that comfort that what we've got in place is actually fit for purpose.
Thank you. Just on the policies in date, obviously 75% versus 95% target. So what confidence can the service give that we will reach the 95% target by end of the year?
Yeah, like I say, we're now, as of last night, up to 90.1%. I'm not going to make any promises by the end of this year. They will be 95%, but that's obviously our ambition. We would endeavour to have it done by January. So I will keep you updated. Again, at this forum, it is regularly reported. Some of it is administrative, so it's just about aligning it with some of our meetings, but we can put extraordinary meetings on, which is what we will endeavour to do. And hopefully the electronic methodology we've just put in place will also help with efficiencies and just getting some of those things over the line as well. So absolutely our ambition to try and get it to 95% as soon as possible.
Would you like to come in? Thank you.
Yes, I just wanted to add to the question around SSRI that it is on the corporate risk register as well. So lack of or inappropriate SSRI is captured, which you get regularly at this meeting. So that is monitored and updated. So that adds that extra level of assurance, hopefully. Thank you.
Thank you. Syrian?
Thank you. I'm thinking of my question as I ask it, which is always dangerous. So just threading some of the stuff that people said about SSRI, it feels kind of like a bit of a natural iterative step, doesn't it? We know now what our risk is. We've got a great handle on it. We know what our capacity is. We're probably too ambitious. That's the summary. So if you consider other fire authorities that have a lower frequency of checking high risk and very high risk, are there any causality between the two? So what I'm basically getting, the nub of my question, right, is if we do this less frequently, are there unintentional impacts we are going to see, which again would sap our capacity and resource?
I'll never say no, never, but I don't envisage so. And again, I think if we look at someone like West Midlands Fire and Rescue Service that have a very similar frequency to what we're proposing, they have other demands as well, and it's matching those demands to a degree as well. And because our community risk management profile is ever evolving, we just got to look at the built environment and certainly local authority plans around housing targets and things like that. We have to be realistic around, what can we achieve, but also maintaining safety and ensuring those safeguards are in place, and assure yourselves that actually what we're doing is in line with guidance, is sufficient. But I'm never going to say there's unintended consequences, because it's like an MOT. You could drive down the road and something falls off after you've had it done. So all I can give you is assurance that we are forward planning what our ongoing risk looks like, and then match our resources to risk appropriately.
And I think that just gives me comfort, right? Because I would never expect you to say no. Low is all right, okay? So I think that's fine, because for me, as someone on here, it's very much about, we're very cognizant of what that impact will be. We can monitor the impact of that fairly straightforward. It falls into audit well with some of this stuff. But yeah, I'm more than comfortable with it.
Thank you very much, members, for your questions, and officers for their responses. If there are no further questions or comments, we move to the recommendations, if we may, and they're on page 17, para 2. And we're asked to approve the metric owners' recommendations, so that the current performance has been highlighted, and then also agreeing the implementation of the mitigations. So I'll take them on block. I'm happy to propose them. Do I see a seconder, please? Thank you. So it's been proposed, the recommendation has been proposed and seconded. Could I see any votes against? Any abstentions? And votes for, please. So that's been carried. Thank you very much. So thank you, Steve and Simon, for all your work on that and presenting today. Thank you. Okay, members, we'll now move on to item 9, which is the 2024-25 Statement of Accounts and External Audit Reports. So I'll hand over to our Finance Officer. Thank you, Verity.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so I'll just say a few words and then I'll hand over to Craig, our External Audit Partner. So the report here today, I apologise, there's a lot of appendices, and I know there are a lot of pages in your bundle because of the kind of final version of the draft accounts that we've included in there. The Bishop Fleming presented their audit plan back in March. Craig provided an update to this committee in September, and then now he's coming back just to kind of give you a summary of where they are in terms of audit completion and signing off of those accounts. There are 5 recommendations to this paper, so we'll probably revisit those at the end. So I'll hand over to Craig really to give you his summary, and then I'm more than happy to take any questions as well at the end.
Thank you, Verity. So Craig Sullivan, Audit Partner at Bishop Fleming, and I'm responsible for the signing off the financial statements. So you have 2 reports in your pack. Appendix 2, which is our draft audit completion report, and that summarises the work on the financial statements. And you have Appendix 3, which is the draft annual auditor's report, which summarises our work on the value for money. So I'll pick up Appendix 2 first of all, which is in relation to the financial statements. So this is currently in draft because our work is substantially complete. There are a couple of areas still to be completed, which are outlined on page 5 of the report, and we expect to get those completed next week without any further adjustments to the financial statements. The overall summary from the audit of the financial statements is that we will be issuing an unqualified audit opinion, which is good, which means there's no issues to report. And that the audit process this year has gone far more smoothly this year than it did last year, and you'll see that's reflected in section 3 of our report, where we RAG rate the audit process, and you've got greens across the board. That's not common across all audits, so I think thank you to Verity and the team for their support and their help in providing what we've needed to get the audit completed. Section 6 of our report outlines the audit adjustments. So you can see that there were 2 adjustments that were made to the financial statements, so from the draft financial statements that you would have seen earlier in the year, and there are a couple of unadjusted adjustments as well. These are all immaterial, so they're there for information. I'm happy to answer any questions at the end. And as Verity highlighted, in Section 7, there are some control recommendations at the back. There's one new finding this year, which just was in relation to one of those adjustments, where there was an error in relation to the gross internal area of one of the buildings. But the others are unresolved best practice recommendations that have been rolled forward from last year. So not anything that would cause a significant issue or problem in relation to the financial statements. So that's all I was going to mention in relation to the audit completion report. I'm happy to answer any questions on that report first.
Thank you, Craig and Verity. Questions or comments from members, please? Thank you, yeah.
I don't know if I'm ahead of myself or not. Hold on, I'm trying to find the title of the document before I ask you. Audit completion, yeah. I probably shouldn't have manually done this one by one. Oh, yeah, it is. Page 151. This is about declarations of interest. Oh, sorry, some missing declaration of interest from 2 councillors. I'm the politician in the room, so I can kind of say it. But are these still outstanding is question one, and then question two is if they are still outstanding, are they current members? Because obviously if they've left, it's a bit hard to do anything at that point.
I think one, we got this last week, didn't we, Emma? Declaration of interest. That one we had two outstanding. One I think we got in last week. I think one is a past member. So someone that left the Fire Authority in May, so was only really a member for a couple of months of this financial year. We did try and chase. I mean, we did a lot of chasing. It gets to the point that it's kind of, is it worth us spending any more time doing it versus the offset? So yeah, we have got one still outstanding.
So just my observation is it is obviously incumbent on all councillors to declare their interest. It's really hard as an authority to do any form of assurance on declaration of interest if you cannot submit your own. It's not hard to know. So I suppose my challenge is as an authority, what options do we have if someone doesn't? Because what this highlights to me, right, you could have someone never ending not filling it out. What are the consequences beyond standards? Like, so I suppose my challenge I'm saying here is have we got enough stick to try and get that declaration done so we're not impacted on an audit, is what I basically think I'm saying.
Yep. Who would like to respond to that?
Trust me to ask the elephant in the room, but I thought I would.
Certainly, obviously, still fairly new to the process, but in terms of the outstanding declarations, I'm aware that there is the process in terms of the initial request for the paperwork to be completed, and then Emma very diligently follows up on that. In respect of any outstanding, then that would fall to me as Clerk and Monitoring Officer to ensure that then those that are outstanding, that there is a further approach made to get that information completed. If it remains outstanding, the next step will be to go to the party lead and obviously to the chair of the authority as well. But given that we are talking about 2 declarations outstanding, it is a fairly small number, and we now have one completed, and we've heard that the circumstances around the other. So I would like to suggest that actually the process that we do have in place is fairly robust, that we're talking about a very low number. But yes, there are mechanisms to ensure that we can get those outstanding completed.
That's fine, that's reassuring. It's just, we've got to do our own assurance, right? And it's quite hard when someone doesn't declare an interest to then know whether there's any conflicts. That's fine.
And obviously, those members are at risk of a complaint coming in from anybody if that was the case. Thank you. David.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to discuss some of the things that are brought up in the audit risks section from page 4 of your report, or 142 of the big bundle. A lot of them are around the valuation of either assets of Avon Fire and Rescue or the pension fund, or how we actually declare this through IFRS 16. What lessons has either the auditors or Avon Fire actually learnt about how we actually present these assets to the auditors? Because it does seem to be a big issue, because it's come to audit several times in terms of the valuation of these assets, and I'd like to see this process go slightly smoother in the future. So can anybody comment on that, please?
Shall I kick off from the audit perspective, and then management can talk about what they're doing internally? So the audit risks are areas that we flag in our audit plan that came to you in March of areas of where we need to do heightened work, where we need to do additional procedures because the risk of there being a potential material misstatement is higher than other areas within the financial statement. So when there's a valuation, there's a judgment incurred. So there's assumptions, there's judgments, and there's information that's being provided normally to a third party to provide the independent valuation. So there's a lot of procedures that we have to go through, both from what information is held by management, what is communicated to the independent valuer, what process they go through, what judgments and assumptions they've taken, and then making sure what comes back is then reflected in the financial statements. So that's why we put it as a significant risk, because of the additional work we need to do, but also the additional kind of complexity of how those numbers are find their way into the accounts. So that's for land and buildings. That also represents IFRS 16 because the leases, the change in the accounting standard was that for operating leases, they're mainly be coming onto the balance sheet now and then valued in the same way with a corresponding lease liability. So we had to follow through what management did in relation to that. The overall adjustment to the accounts is immaterial, but we're finalising, that's one of the areas we're finalising our work at the moment. And then pensions, obviously that goes to the actuary, and the actuary completes their report and sends that back in as well. So in terms of what we found, we only found one error that was flagged in the report, which was the duplication of a GIA in relation to one property. The rest of our testing didn't flag any issues to report.
And I think just to add to that, and the way that Craig's described those risks there, it's almost, they're inherent in the type of organisation we are. We have big pension liability balances there. We have big asset values. So regardless of the processes we have in place, even if they're as robust as they could be, those risks are still going to be raised as part of the audit planning process. Obviously, we have had an adjustment, as Craig's mentioned, but that was a one-off. And I think actually the work over the last couple of years has seen an improvement in the kind of the drawings and all the things that support our asset valuations. We have an independent asset valuer that we use to make sure that we have an expert to provide those numbers. So I think from a management perspective, I'm happy that we've got strong controls in place, and just unfortunately this year there was just one kind of oversight, as Craig mentioned, with a duplication of a GIA on there, which caused confusion with the valuers providing the right valuation of that one site. If that helps answer your question.
Thank you. Yes, it does. And I'm impressed that we've done, and assured that we've done the due diligence on this now. It has been coming to audit for several years, so I think we've learnt our lessons, and hopefully we won't have, well, we will have to continue that due diligence, but it won't be such a big factor in future audits. Thank you.
Any further questions from members or comments? We've had several questions from the independent member sent through. The first one is, what steps have been taken to address value for money weaknesses raised in the annual auditor's report?
I think Paula might be answering that one, but actually I don't know whether we want to hand over to Craig first of all to talk through that, and because we've just talked through the audit completion reports. So if Craig maybe could present the annual auditor's report, and then it might, that question might make more sense.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll pick up our second report now, which is Appendix 3, and this is the draft annual auditor's report. So the auditor's annual report summarises our findings from the audit of the financial statements, which we've covered in the previous report, but also outlines our findings in relation to the value for money. And that's where we need to look at the arrangements that the authority has in place around financial sustainability, governance, and improving economy efficiency and effectiveness. The approach we take to this is we take the guidance and we put it into a self-assessment document, which then management complete, and then they upload the corresponding evidence to justify the arrangements that they have in place. We then work through that information, follow up some of the recommendations that we've made from last year to then review what we consider to be the current arrangements in place at the authority. In section 2, page 3 of the report, is our exec summary where we've summarised our conclusions in relation to the 3 areas I previously mentioned. So you'll see that there's a red there in governance, and there was a red there last year which corresponds to there being a significant weakness, and this was in relation to the HMI CFRS findings previously. So we flagged that in our audit plan that would be a significant weakness and a significant area for us to review. And based on the status as at the year-end position, this is taken as at the 31st of March 2025, and on the basis that there's 2 accelerated causes of concern still outstanding, we've concluded that there still represents a significant weakness at that point of time, although we've highlighted in the report that good progress has been made as reported by HMI CFRS through their follow-up work as well. So we'll be, through the current year's audit, the March 26 year's audit, we'll again be following up the progress that's been made by the authority and any follow-up reviews as well by HMI CFRS as to see how that risk then evolves into next year. Section 8 of our report is the summary of recommendations. So there's only one new recommendation from this year, which is in relation to financial sustainability. and the challenges around the unidentified savings in the medium-term financial plan. So there, as you would have seen from finance reports coming through, there are some challenges, there are some savings that need to be made, and we're flagging that as an area of concern to an extent, in that's going to have to be a key area of focus looking forward to bridge that gap. The other issues that are included in Section 8 are follow-up from last year, where still the recommendations have not been completely resolved in full. So again, we followed those through. We've provided an updated situation for the current year, and we'll be following through them again next year. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, are there any questions on that from members or comments? None? Okay.
Would you like me to?
Yeah. Thank you, Paula. Yeah, do come in now.
Thank you. I was just going to follow up because there was a question from the independent member, but we think this might also link it to questions they asked that we'll follow up in agenda item 10. So without wishing to duplicate, some of the questions were around HMI, but I'm conscious we did report on this at the Avon Fire Authority meeting 28th of November, and you'll find that in the paper, the progress update following a HMI revisit to the service in July 2025. But I just wanted to just highlight some reports in that to just make this more current in terms of the audit report. So as you know, HMI visited the service in July this year, and they looked at our risk information, accelerated cause of concern, our prevention cause of concern, and they didn't look at our culture cause of concern in that revisit. So HMI will be returning back to the service in January to undertake a full inspection. But just to give you some oversight as to where we are at this moment in time, in terms of the 4 accelerated and causes of concern, as you're aware, the mobilisation accelerated cause of concern was already discharged. In terms of understanding the risk of fires and other emergencies, which is the SSRI, accelerated cause of concern, that has now been discharged, and one of the recommendations moved to an area for improvement. The preventing fires and other risks cause of concern is open, but there's actually only one recommendation open. And that recommendation is to make sure the prevention department has enough resources to implement all its prevention activity. And then finally, promoting the right values and culture, which was a cause of concern, is also open. But just to reiterate, HMI didn't inspect that when they came back in the sort of interim. They will be looking at us again in January. So we continue to hopefully continue working, closing that off. So if you look on page 179 of your report, the continuous improvement manager there has put some comments as to work that is ongoing. So we will continue to attend the fire performance oversight meeting. We have increased our frequency of reporting to the service leadership team, so that's now done monthly, and that links in with the policies that I spoke about earlier. We have our people, culture and leadership strategy. The portfolio directorate is now in bed, and within that we also have a temporary culture change implementation lead, and our continuous improvement manager continues to offer assurance utilising 3 lines of assurance. So it's a little bit of a catch-all, but I hope it gives you a bit of an idea where we are at the present.
Yeah, thank you, Paula. Any questions or comments on that? Okay. Craig, have you finished your presentation?
I have.
Excellent. And Verity, anything else you want to add?
I will. There are 2 more questions from the independent member. The first one is, how will National Audit Office dependencies on whole government accounts assurance impact timelines for certifying the audit? So I might hand over to Craig to answer that one for me, please.
That's fine. So in relation to the whole of government accounts, the WGA, we submit our WGA assurance return to the National Audit Office when we issue our opinion. The area that will be held up is we can't issue the audit certificate until the NAO have completed their procedures as part of a group audit. And there are delays within their processes this year because there's been a revised auditing standard, it's ISA 600 for anyone interested, that's come in that means they have to do additional work in relation to the group audit. We know there's going to be delays because we still haven't been able to issue our audit certificates for the NHS sector and their reporting deadline was in June. So you can see how far behind it is in relation to that sector. So when we are able to issue it, we will then give you our audit certificate, which you will then publish alongside the opinion that we'll be able to provide you with next week.
Thank you. And then there was one more question from the independent member, which was, are there any emerging audit risks for 25-26? So again, I'm going to hand over to Craig to see if there's anything he wanted to highlight for the next external audit.
Thank you. In terms of audit risks, there's nothing coming out so far. Unfortunately, the valuation risks will still be there. Those risks that we'll have in the report will still be there because we'll still need to do that additional work in relation to our audit in relation to that. We'll still have the significant weakness in relation to the HMI findings, but again, we'll follow up in January as to their conclusions from there. Probably the big change for next year from the accounting perspective that ties into that valuation piece is there's been a revised audit code issued, CIPFA code issued, and included within there as part of their attempts to simplify some of the arrangements in place and simplify some of the processes, they've put in place a requirement that full valuations on the land and buildings will now only happen every 5 years, once every 5 years, rather than going through an annual cycle to work out whether there's any impairment or anything from there, that you would potentially then have a rolling cycle of valuations. And in the intervening years, you would then apply indexation. So then you will need to identify appropriate indices with which you will then uplift your land and building valuations on an annual basis before you then have that full valuation on the 5th year. So we'll be liaising with Verity and the team in terms of what their plans and their processes are around implementing that new guidance, and that form part of our audit plan that we'll report to you as well then for next year.
Thank you very much, Craig. Any further comments or questions from members? If not, we'll then move to the recommendations. And you'll see the recommendations are on the bottom of page 27 of your, and 20, the top of 28 on your agenda pack. I'll take them on block, if I may. I'm very happy to propose them. Do I see a seconder, please? Thank you very much. And we will now move then to the vote. So, any votes against? Any abstentions? Votes for, please. And that's carried. Thank you.
Can I just say, on that very final recommendation, recommendation E, it just caveats there that, as Craig said, they're hoping to finalise the last few bits of their audit work next week. Yeah. If the assumption is that there will be no changes to the accounts, there won't be any significant changes to the audit reports. And so we're approving them on the basis that there's going to be no changes. If there were any changes, we would be bringing it back to the committee. So I'll keep you informed on that.
Well, thank you for that, Verity. And Craig, thank you very much for all the work you've done and your company on the work this year. And thank you for presenting today. Okay, members, we'll now move on to item 10, which is the final annual governance and assurance statement 24-25. And I believe Helen is going to present to us. Thank you. Thank you, Helen.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, members. So I'd like to present the annual governance and assurance statement for 2024-25. If I can ask members to turn to page 189 of your packs, please. You'll see this is a decision paper where members are asked to approve the amendments to the statement for signing and publication. The statement must be signed and published alongside the final statement of accounts. So whilst the external auditors have not finalised their report and the accounts are not yet signed, it's not anticipated that there'll be any changes that affect the statement. So therefore, this is a final draft to be approved on the basis that no further changes are required. And in the unlikely event that there are changes, same as Verity said, it would come back to AGOT for further approval before it's signed and published. So just to briefly explain the background, each year we are required to produce an annual governance statement to comply with the Accounts and Audit Regulations 2015. And the statement sets out how the Fire Authority will comply with these regulations and provides a clear assessment of the governance framework that's operated over the previous year. In accordance with the Fire and Rescue National Framework for England, every Fire Authority must also publish a statement of assurance each year. The statement provides assurance to the community and the government by explaining how the AFA has complied with that framework. The most efficient way for us to meet both of these requirements is through this combined report entitled Annual Governance and Assurance Statement. This is a new approach from this year which aims to reduce the duplication across the two statements which have historically been published separately. So the draft statement was presented to this committee on the 20th of June 2025 and the content was approved subject to it being updated with the external audit opinion and commentary on the value for money when that was completed. This is, as you've seen, has been presented today and the annual governance and assurance statement has been updated to reflect the findings. The statement can be found from page 193 of your packs. As the majority of the content was approved in draft, I'll take you through the amendments which are highlighted in yellow throughout the document, and this is the focus for this paper. So page 222 is the section about external audit. External auditors have reported the ongoing significant weakness in relation to the service's governance arrangements, first raised in 2022-23, and this related to the recommendation that the service continues to review the actions implemented and ensure the desired outcomes are achieved to address the concerns raised by HMICFRS. The report noted the progress towards reducing the accelerated causes of concern and causes of concern. However, there are still outstanding recommendations with causes of concern remaining open, which in the auditor's opinion constitutes a significant weakness in the governance arrangements. Progress has also been recognised by the Inspectorate during their revisits and revisit letters. And the service continues to address the HMICFRS findings, and our governance arrangements have been strengthened to ensure that we are progressing the recommendations and the desired outcomes are achieved. The PRC received regular updates on progress against HMICFRS action plan, and Paul has also given some extra context around how we continue with assurance around that. So on page 222, you'll see the paragraphs relating to external audit in section 15 have been updated to reflect the findings. Page 224, the paragraphs relating to HMICFRS have been updated to reflect the outcome of the July revisit, and the executive summary back on page 195 has also been amended to take into consideration the findings of the sort of overall assessment of governance for 2024-25. Finally, page 227, you'll see that section 17, the statement will need to be signed by the Chair of the Authority, the Chief Fire Officer, Statutory Finance Officer and the Clerk. As these were the only sections that have changed in the document, as I say, that should be the focus of this paper. There were some questions by the independent member, which I believe have been covered via the various conversations and by Paula already. Just one final one, which was how will assurance be reported back to AGOC? So external audit, as we've said, will have their report again next year, which will review those significant weaknesses again. And the next version of the annual governance and assurance statement will also be back with you in June, which will have also reviewed those matters as well. That concludes my presentation. Any further questions?
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments from members? Obviously, we've seen this several times now, and we've just highlighted the changes from last time. Any comments on those changes? Well, thank you, Helen, for presenting that and addressing also the independent members' questions as well in your presentation. So we need to go to a vote on this. So I'm just going to go back to the start of this, and it's on page, the recommendations are on page 189 in your agenda pack, and there's two recommendations there. I'll take them en bloc. Can I see please a proposer please for those two recommendations? Thank you. And a seconder? Thank you. So it's been proposed and seconded. We'll now move to the vote. So could we first of all see any votes against, please? Any abstentions? And votes for, please. Thank you, members. And that's been carried. Thank you again, Helen. Okay, members, now we move on to item 11. And this is for scrutiny so not for approval but for scrutiny, and it's the internal audit update and progress report, and Matt Stacey is here to present. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll take you through the prevention report first, and then we'll move on to the progress report and the appended items. So in terms of this piece of work, we'd agreed at the start of the year for focus, it would look at key objectives from your service plan that linked into prevention, recognising when we came around to doing the scoping for this piece of work, you'd recently had a HMI CFRS inspection that had looked at areas around fire safety and your home fire safety visits. So the focus of this work then leaned more into safeguarding water and road safety, as you'll appreciate from the scope at the back of the report. What we also did as part of this work is undertook a questionnaire of a number of key staff to get views in terms of how they felt prevention was working across the organisation and how aware they were of key practices. This has come out as a reasonable assurance report in terms of the focus of where the actions have landed. 3 of the mediums are in relation to training, so that's elements around the rollout of the training on MyLO, review of the monitoring around that to ensure that where training is made mandatory, that staff are completing it, and equally looking at how you can tailor the training around safeguarding based on role, so if there is additional requirements that's built in. The only final point then for the medium priority actions was around governance, and specifically that was considering the reporting of safeguarding through various different mechanisms within the organisation. So that was looking at how you report safeguarding to ensure there is clear awareness at all levels, and then the action that's being taken as a result. So that's all I really want to say at a high level. You can see within the appendices we've got some of the outcomes from the survey. There's probably nothing in there that is too surprising in terms of where the understanding sits, and the corporate roles are those where we've identified staff with less awareness of some of the key responsibilities, but equally they're the staff that then are less public facing, so we'll have less requirement of safeguarding. So I'll pause there to take questions, but that's a high level summary of the report.
Thank you very much, Matt, for that. Members, any questions or comments? David, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. On page 242 of the big bundle, or page 10 of your report, we talk about management action SAF 03. The service will identify staff members that require extra safeguarding training, for instance, safer recruitment, in order to start developing tailored training. How many members of staff were identified, and have they all been allocated training appropriately according to this, please?
That's probably one that I'm better to place back to the organisation. We've highlighted that there was a gap there and consideration needed, so I'll let the operational team provide an update.
Yeah, thank you. Safeguarding sits with myself as well as strategic lead for the organisation. As you've identified, we recognise there was a number of staff at different levels, and safer recruitment was one area of that. We've recently carried out safer recruitment training. Both of our safeguarding leads, which is our 2 prevention managers, and a number of two staff in human resources, have carried out that safer recruitment training now. And as part of the rollout of the new training, which is detailed in the report, they will receive an enhanced level of training, which is separate to the training that operational staff will receive, and also what SLT members will receive. And the same as myself, I'll have a different level depending on where we sit in the organisation. So that safer recruitment ensures that when we do recruit, we now make sure we employ people based on a number of criteria that ensures we meet those safeguarding requirements. So it was something that was already planned, which hopefully is detailed in the report, and this aligns to what's already within our organisational service plan, where there's a specific section around safeguarding. So we were comforted by a reasonable assurance, and it was a worthwhile exercise to do, because it allowed us to recognise those gaps, certainly around training and obviously the governance level of it.
Thank you. Recruitment was one example. Have there been any other areas where you've had to give extra training for safeguarding, please?
Nothing was already identified that we'd already carried out. So we've only recently, over this week, our specialist fire investigation team, following a review of an incident, we recognise that they probably need a slightly level enhanced now. As it currently stands, if our operational staff are the basic level of safeguarding training, our specialist community safety workers and prevention team have a next level up because potentially they'll be working with young people. And then above that, our safeguarding leads have level 4 training alongside myself. It was only recently that our fire investigation team, they'd done everything right, but actually what we reviewed from an incident was actually they could do just the next level up. So I'm quite, again, comforted that what we've got in place and the plan in place will cover all levels, and that will include SLT members, which links to the governance reporting as well.
I think I might have heard you mention the home fire safety visits team. They're on that list, aren't they?
Yes, so our specialist community safety workers, they have a different level of training than our operational staff. But again, all of our staff will carry out the mandatory 3-year training, and obviously they're all DBS checked as well, so we provide that level of assurance that way.
Thank you. Onkar.
Thank you, Chair. So, does internal audit team feels that management responses and timelines are realistic, and especially actions relating to system or structural changes?
Thanks for the question, and thanks, Stephen, for your previous answers. When we were undertaking the work, and as part of the process, we issue a draft report which has suggested timelines and owners, but as part of that process, there is a rigorous conversation that does happen around the viability of completing actions within a certain timeline. So all of these have been agreed with management and the timeline set on what they feel is achievable. We always say there's a balance to be had of they should be sufficiently challenging, but also realistic so that they can be completed. So each of these, you'll appreciate some of the actions are more of your low-hanging fruit in the sense they can be completed quite quickly, and then those where there's a bit more time that needs to be taken, those are the ones that then have extended into 2026. So we were happy from our conversations that what has been placed in this report is achievable timelines.
Thank you, Matt and Anka. Some questions from the independent member. The first one is, can AGOC be assured that the remaining internal audit actions are sufficiently prioritised by management? Who wants to respond to that one?
Do you want me to take that one? So, in relation not to this particular report, but all internal audit actions, they're all reported to SLT quarterly, and extensions are discussed and put to SLT for approval. So that is where we, SLT have that overall picture of resources, capacity and so on, and are able to help with any barriers or prioritisation issues to ensure that they're prioritised accordingly.
Thank you. Matt?
And yeah, just to add to that, there is that ongoing cycle of review. So we come in and do our action tracking, which you'll see in the progress report on the next item. Equally, you're getting those 6 monthly updates on internal audit recommendations. So you get the opportunity to see through those whether or not actions are being progressed to timelines, and take the chance then to scrutinise if you feel that there isn't sufficient priority being placed on them.
Thank you. The second one is about additional support. Is additional support needed for audit areas with repeated delays? Thank you.
I'm happy to take that one. So what I would just say is we haven't had in the recent piece of work we've done any challenges around ongoing delays. It's been fairly, staff have been fairly engaged, which I think is just positive about the relationship we have with the organisation. What we do have is the assurance team that act internally as our internal advocates of internal audit, so it gives us a route through which we can escalate. We have a number of steps then through the organisation which goes right the way up within our charter to highlighting that we have a direct route into the chair if we needed to escalate, or the chair of this committee if we needed to escalate for whatever reason. So we're happy there is a clear process and that there isn't additional support beyond that we would need.
Thank you, Matt. And the last one is regarding stores and stock management. At 10% completion, This is said to be behind target. What level should it achieve by the end of October? Will the internal audit programme be adjusted to address the risk?
I think this is probably one that will be better to pick up when we come to the recommendations, tracking, but equally happy to open up if management do want to comment.
Yeah, I can cover that off in the next item, if that's all right, and if I've missed any bits, feel free to prompt me. Yeah.
Any further questions or comments from members? So that item was just for scrutiny, so there's no need to take a vote on that. But thank you very much to Matt for presenting on that, and also to Helen. So we move on to item 12. This is the update on the internal audit recommendations, and Helen again will take us through. Thank you, Helen.
Thank you, Chair. So this report starts at page 287, has one recommendation, which is to scrutinise the progress made against the internal audit recommendations and management actions. Turning to page 288 and 289, you'll see that there's 3 tables which provide a summary of progress for all the internal audit actions for each year where there's still remaining actions. So for 23-24 year, of the 27 agreed actions, 24 have been closed. Of the 3 remaining open have required extension. However, since writing the report, I can report that 1 further action has been reported as complete, although that's still pending review of the evidence. But there's just 2 outstanding there for that year now. For the year 24-25, of the 24 agreed actions, 22 have been closed. Both of these have approved extensions. And for the current audit year, 18 actions have been agreed so far. The independent member asked whether progress was being made in line with expectation for stocks and stores. It's worth remembering that this report was only finalised in September, and the updates for this paper reflect the position at the end of October, just in terms of our internal paper deadlines. So in the paper, 1 has been closed and 2 has been reported as complete, but pending the evidence to be checked by our auditors, and 1 has been extended now due to the timescale sort of becoming apparent that it wasn't appropriate, wasn't long enough to fully implement, so well ahead of the deadline being coming up to the deadline, they sort of re-evaluated that one. And all other actions are within their planned dates, so management are quite comfortable with the current position. The prevention actions were newly agreed at the time of writing the paper, so we haven't sought updates on those. And from page 291, the appendices provide the summary of progress against the remaining actions. So Appendix 1 for the 23-24 year, excluding the corporate IT risk review action, which is in the exempt appendix. Appendix 2 for the 24-25 year, and Appendix 3 for the current year to date, as I say, excluding the prevention ones which you've heard about today. That's my update on how we're progressing. As you'll see, quite positive progress being made. Before I take any questions, a couple from the independent member. A question around the extension requests and how they're managed and whether we're sufficiently prioritising by management. So internal audit actions, as I've said, they are reported quarterly to SLT, and the extensions discussed for their approval, and that allows SLT to scrutinise and assist with capacity and prioritisation issues. What mechanisms ensure that any repeated audit themes are escalated? So each year when the annual audit plan is developed, the auditors and the service would discuss all the risks, themes, management concerns as part of our planning for inclusion in the following year's plan. And if themes are identified during the year, we can also adapt the plan if a more urgent review is needed. The internal auditors may also highlight themes, and with the new global internal audit standards, there's a growing expectation around root cause analysis being done, so we're expecting to see more of that sort of recognition of themes coming through going forward. So happy to take any further questions.
Thank you very much, Helen. Any questions or comments from members? This is for scrutiny rather than a decision. Yes, Onkar.
Thank you. So the report shows one high priority action still open. So what is preventing closure and where additional support or resources are needed to complete it? And I think it's around review whether the prevention department has sufficient resources.
Sorry, can you direct me to which page, which action we're referring to?
So it's on, a second, just need to, because I got that on my notes. So, so the one high priority action which is still open.
Bear with me, let me just find that one.
Is that SSM10, because that's the only high priority I can see? Or SSM04? I haven't said that, is it anything is SSM?
So the SS ones are all the stocks and stores management ones. So that report was finalised in September. And let's have a look.
I think it's referring to the HMO action, cause of concern. That's the action. If I may, Chair, yes, Councillor, I think that relates to the HMIC action for the final element of the prevention cause for concern, not internal audit, but I'm happy to answer if you answer.
Yes, please, if you can. Thank you.
That's okay, Chair. Yeah, so yes, as been reported in that action, with the one final element of the prevention cause of concern is around capacity. Linking to a comment I made earlier on in the previous minutes around our productivity piece of work and our efficiency, ACFO Gazard, Assistant Chief Officer Gazard, will be coming back in March with an overall view of what our productivity return looks like. Linked to that piece of work is around the prevention department capacity and also the capacity that our whole-time workforce can provide in relation to prevention activities. So we've had further meetings this week, which has already provided some raw data around what our capacity looks like. And that obviously is now being worked through. And we will then look at what capacity we have, what work needs to be prioritised, and then obviously whether a decision needs to go to Service Leadership Board and Service Leadership Team, whether we need more resources either in prevention or we realign some of our work activities. So that's ongoing. I feel confident we're in a good place, that we have sufficient evidence now to provide the inspectorate when they come back in January, that actually we've now done that piece of work around what capacity the prevention department has, what capacity our whole-time workforce has, and we're able to now provide an update to them on what we will need to do to move forward. So that was the only bit that kept, I believe, the cause of concern outstanding, was we didn't have any raw data around effectively a time and motion study about what our capacity actually is to be able to deliver on our activities. We've now got that raw data. We're now just analysing that data to be able to provide the evidence to give to the HMI. And touch wood, I'm really confident that that will close that cause of concern. It might still remain an area for improvement because they'll want to see what those results are, but I believe it will close that cause of concern. I'm staking my career on that now, aren't I? But I believe that they will.
Thank you, Steve. David.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to ask some questions about the reasonable adjustments area, which is on 293 of our bundle. This seems to have slipped a lot over 6 months in terms of delivery date. Can we have some assurance that the November 2025 delivery has been actually met? Please.
So the reasonable adjustments, we had 2 open. Both have been extended to the end of November. I have checked in with Alison Short, Head of People Services, and they're both policy ones, aren't they, if I remember correctly. I believe that they are both just ready to be signed off if they haven't already. I know we've had a real up-to-date position on policy Paula, but as I understood it earlier on this week, they were just waiting to be signed off. That electronic signing system.
I can check on those specifically for you and get back to you, but I wouldn't want to give you the wrong information, so I'll check exactly where they're up to with that and give you a response.
That would be really useful, because it does say that the policy will be published at the end of November in the latest update, so it'd be good to make sure we're on track, please.
Yeah, thank you, David, for raising that. Any further questions or comments from members? Okay, thank you very much. So that was for scrutiny. There's no vote needed on that one. So we now move on to item 13, which is the annual monitoring of collaboration and partnerships. Matt.
Sorry, just to say there was a couple of other items on item 11. I didn't want to interrupt that discussion, but a couple that I was planning to talk to, if that's okay. I can be quick, conscious of time.
No, my apologies. You carry on.
So it was just to talk through. So we've provided a progress report which gives you an update of where we're at in the year. So at a very high level, just to give you the position there, we're on track for delivery of the full plan by the end of March. We have two reports that have gone through this committee. The devolved budget is currently out in draft service planning. The fieldwork is underway, and that should be with the organisation soon. Equally, the pensions review at the point of providing this report was TBC, but we have now got that up and running. Conversations have happened, and we've got data then to work through on that. So we're happy in terms of progress. And then action tracking, which just covers back to that item 12. We've closed 3 down as part of this update. So just to give you comfort that those ones have been closed. And then just to talk to the other reports that sit in the background, I'm not going to spend long on them. Again, very conscious of time. What we've included as one is the benchmarking report, which just gives you a bit of an idea of where you sit against other emergency services clients that we work with. What I would say is this shouldn't be seen as a league table or anything to compare against, in the sense of, if you were sitting on this committee saying we want to get 100% green reports, you probably wouldn't be using internal audit in the right way to get insurance in the right areas. So while it gives you an idea of where you sit, it's purely just that. It just brings out then some key issues across the sector. So I don't think anyone in this meeting will be surprised to see cyber, digital and data sitting right at the top of that list. Equally then some of the other risks that sit below it around estates, health and safety, people-related risks that link in with yourselves. But I would say there is an element of bias in that this will focus on areas that we've covered within internal audit plans this year. So there may be areas this doesn't capture because they haven't formed as much of the internal audit plans we've delivered across our client base. The only other report, and I won't say very much on this at all, but it's just an emerging risk radar, which gives you an idea of some of the key themes and risks we're seeing, not just within this sector, but more widely. So it's looking at the macro environment. What are some of the things you may wish to think about? Some of which will be very, very relevant to yourselves, some of which might just be plugging you into the wider macroeconomic factors. So that's just all I wanted to say. Happy to take questions, or happy to move on, conscious of the time.
No, thank you, Matt. It's important we hear these things. Any questions or comments from members? No? Okay, thanks, Matt, for that. We will now move on then to item 13. And Mandy Pescott. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This report provides members with our current register of collaborations and formal partnerships. It also updates you on our governance arrangements, evaluation activity and effectiveness, the review of our collaboration toolkit and collaboration strategy, development of a new collaboration risk register, our progress against the HMI area for improvement for collaboration, and both new and upcoming collaboration activity. So I'll briefly take you through the points in section 5. And I'm asking the committee to scrutinise the content of this report and note the updated register. So moving on to points 5.1 to 5.3 and the register. We currently have 26 collaborations and partnerships listed. The register has been updated recently to include alignment to corporate risk management plan, community risk management plan, alignment, governance arrangements, confirmation of risk and impact assessments, and the status of evaluation activity and effectiveness. All of these things ensure that our collaborations are being managed effectively with risk in mind and benefits in mind also. A snapshot of this additional information is provided in Table 1 of my report. If members have any questions about the table, please do let me know. Moving on to section 5.4 to 5.5 and collaboration governance. We have a governance structure within the service that allows us to ensure that collaboration decisions and actions are made by the right people. And further details of that structure will come in the independent members' questions later. It ensures that our decisions are transparent, risks are managed, and resources are used appropriately. Within each collaboration individually, partners mutually agree governance arrangements for the management of those particular collaborations, including roles and responsibilities, decision-making, dispute resolution, joint monitoring and review. Again, this and continued alignment. This ensures that they're working effectively and providing the benefits that we were expecting. 5.6 to 5.9, evaluation, completion and effectiveness. Evaluation allows us to review alignment, track outcomes, monitor risk and impact, and identify improvement opportunities, and importantly, decide on a collaboration's continuance. 16 of the 26 collaborations listed on our register are subject to full evaluation. We are currently maintaining an excellent evaluation completion rate. A couple of years ago, it wasn't so good, with lots of reds in our red, amber, green ratings. I am now pleased to report that we have been sitting at 100% completion rate for the past 8 months or so. And our red, amber, green effectiveness ratings are helping us to identify where action for change or improvement is required. Moving on to 5.10, Collaboration Toolkit Review. Again, a couple of years ago, we introduced a Collaboration Toolkit, which provides collaboration leads with the guidance and tools they need to effectively manage collaboration, which is essential because collaboration failure is not an option, really. If we're managing it effectively, it should be producing the benefits that are expected. There's always best practice to be applied, and also following a recent survey, there's some staff feedback that we're going to apply to the updated toolkit as well. The collaboration strategy, our current strategy, 21 to 26, is being refreshed, nearing completion. The new 26 to 28 strategy scheduled for presentation at PRC meeting in January 26, and subject to approval at that meeting will be on Modern Gov for your information. Collaboration Risk Register, a new area of work, is being developed, hopefully for completion in Q4. This will provide central oversight of risks associated with joint initiatives and will integrate with our existing risk management framework, supporting safe, effective and strategically aligned collaboration. This is a brand new area of work for me. There's a lot of risk associated with collaborative working and partnership working, which is why we do thorough collaboration planning before a collaboration commences, so that we can identify the risk and put measures in place to ensure as much as we can that those risks don't occur. Moving on to 5.16, HMIC area for improvement. I'm pleased to confirm that our area for improvement, this was in relation to evaluation completion rates, improved, and as I said, we're 100% completion rate at the moment. This reflects the ongoing efforts of collaboration leads in their work, because I ask them to evaluate their collaboration activities on an annual basis, and they have to absorb this within their already busy workloads. But the evaluations that I'm getting back are of higher quality than previously, and have been on time for, like I said, for about 8 months now. So shout out to our collaboration leads. 5.17, new collaboration activity. Just to give you an idea of anything new that's happened over the last 12 months, we have a new regional cross-border exercise in collaboration with our neighbouring FRSs. which is enhancing shared risk awareness and interoperability and contributing to the overall effectiveness and resilience of our emergency response capabilities. And some collaboration in planning. I can mention 4. A new Bath River Safety Group aimed at improving water-related safety through shared data and targeted campaigns. Formalising arrangements with the Firefighters Charity regarding clothing banks on service sites with plans to expand this. Strengthening collaboration with Bristol Airport, which includes training on our new site-specific risk information systems. And working with local water companies. This is regarding water demand at operational incidents through the exchange of knowledge and this incident and improves incident resilience. I think that takes me to the end of the report myself, but I understand I have independent member questions. Okay. Question 1, are current collaborations still delivering measurable benefits and savings? Benefits, yes. Savings, we don't currently quantify success in terms of monetary savings. Most of the intended outcomes of our collaborations and partnerships are the benefits that they deliver to our communities. I can give you a couple of examples. RNLI Water Safety Education Partnership. Recent evaluation has demonstrated that this collaboration is going from strength to strength. We started the relationship with RNLI a few years ago, but over the last couple of years it really has improved vastly. This relationship ensures people across our local authority areas receive consistent and impactful messaging regarding inland and coastal water safety, and which directly supports our prevention objectives. Another example is our Working at Height collaboration with South West Ambulance Service Foundation Trust. And again, recent evaluation has evidenced as joint training with SWAS to understand each other's roles and ways of working really helps in ensuring that our communities are receiving efficient and prompt life-saving medical interventions by working together. So joint response and joint training has really improved our response at such incidents. We're also including, they're very good, this collaboration leader, recording lessons learned and remedying those as well, which is great through joint training. Which collaborations present the highest risk of underperformance and non-compliance? This is difficult for me to answer. My role as Collaboration and Partnerships Manager is to provide an approach to collaborative working for the service and to embed systems and processes for collaboration leads to effectively manage their collaborations. So, highlighting which are the highest risk of underperformance and non-compliance would be a question for collaboration leads to answer, in my view. Routine monitoring and annual evaluation is opportunity to pick up performance issues which could then be addressed at the time. But if members would like collaboration leads to come back with an answer to that question, I'm happy to source that. Is the governance framework sufficiently robust? Short answer, yes. Sufficiently at this current time. We introduced a governance structure in 2024 to make individuals' accountability and responsibilities clear and ensure, as I've said, actions and decisions are taken by the right people. It also gives senior managers oversight of the collaboration activity across the service, which was absent before, and provides a nice link straight through from collaboration lead through straight up to this committee. Reputational risk, how do we assess reputational risk with partners? We have an in-depth planning process for any new collaboration or partnership. And there are some actions that are taken before planning even begins with that with those arrangements. One of the areas we address is partner fit. So we would be looking for partner fit with our values, objectives and culture. And there must be a shared goal before we even move forward with planning a partnership with them. If a strong fit isn't possible, we either have to accept the risk or find an alternative partner. For well-known partners like the police or the NHS, we already know their ways of working and are used to working with them. So potential partner due diligence isn't really required there. But for those organisations that are less well known to us, collaboration leads have guidance on performing due diligence on potential partners to make sure that there is that fit with us as an organisation. We would check things like if they say they're a registered charity, then we would check that out on the appropriate website. We're looking at Companies House for business information. We're looking at their website. We're finding out as much about them as possible before we start planning any collaboration. So our collaboration needs to have the guidance to carry that out. When we have partnered with a partner who is less well known to us, and we've carried out these checks, our written agreements provide us with some further assurance, setting out clear expectations around disputes and issues, branding, behaviours, and all have exit strategies so that we can exit the collaboration should anything become unreasonable for us and we decide to exit. We share our code of ethics with partners. We monitor progress throughout the collaboration lifecycle and conduct annual evaluations, including stakeholder feedback and lessons learned. So any issues with partners that are less well known to us should be picked up pretty quickly. Yes, I think that's the answers to my 4 independent member questions. Thank you very much. I'm happy to answer any questions members here today have for me.
Thank you very much, Mandy. And obviously, partnerships are very important to us because doing stuff in partnership, we get the best for our communities.
Yes.
And so it's really important that we get these partnerships right, isn't it? So
yes, it is.
Thank you for your presentation. Members, any questions? Yeah, Syrian.
Just two quick questions from me. So one of the evaluations is rated red, so that's around the British Red Cross. I'm just interested, what's the underlying things that have been identified there? And then a more general point, I suppose, is when you do an evaluation and it says, oh, do you know what, this collaboration probably needs to be a bit different going forward, or we might need to end it. Like, where does that fit in the governance structure?
I'll take the second part first. If the outcome of an evaluation is the red, amber, green ratings for continuance are it's going well, continue as is. Amber, it's okay, but we could improve it. We still want to hold on to this one, but we need to put improvements in place. And the red is we're not going to be able to improve this. It's not working for either party, so we'll consider closure. Within the governance structure, a closure is recommended by the collaboration lead and discussed with myself. And it's the manager the manager accountable, which sits at area manager and equivalent level, who would make the final decision regarding any collaboration closure. So it is carefully considered. Does that answer that part of the question for you?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. And sorry, can you remind me?
So the first bit is, I suppose, what's the underlying reasons for the red for British Red Cross? Because obviously the notes say it's urgent action required to develop, so it might be you want to do some stuff, right?
Yes.
Or it's considered for closure, so it can either be one of those two.
Yeah. We've done the urgent action required to develop. So we have clarified some. We had. We drafted a new written agreement which covered the arrangement as it stands today, whereas the previous written agreement didn't. So we updated the written agreement. We've met frequently with British Red Cross and are now both happy that if I was to reevaluate that collaboration today, it would be green. So it has been addressed.
That's fine, that's saying you. So the administrative red rather than everything's terrible red. That's fine.
Yes, we have changed some things, but yes.
Thank you very much. Ankar.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mandy. I think you probably already answered partially in your brief, but I just want to rephrase again. Are there any collaborations that are no longer providing value or require a review?
If a collaboration was no longer providing the value that we expected, we would have picked that up at evaluation stage, and we don't currently have any that are being put forward for potential closure. I don't know what I can add to that answer, unless you, yeah, is that fine?
Thank you, and thank you, Mandy, for all the work your team are doing on this.
Thank you.
Very, very important part of our business. So do pass our thanks back.
I will send more email.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Members, we'll move on then to item 14, which is the 6-monthly update on fire control system implementation. Unfortunately, the group manager control is unable to present today, so this will be led by Zoe or Amber or both. So, yeah, thank you.
I'm going to take this one. Thank you, Chair. Yes, unfortunately, the Group Manager Control is not able to attend today. So this is the 6-monthly update on the fire control system implementation. And by way of background, the mobilisation contract came to the PRC in a business case in October 2024 and approved the contract award in April 2025. We as an organisation then signed that contract on the 10th of November 2025, enabling immediate project kick-off. The delivery plan has been re-baselined by 1 month at commercial close, and the overall project RAG remains green for this piece of work. Implementation continues within the previously approved programme envelope with no additional funding requested, and prior approvals and oversight were provided by the PRC with agreement that this committee would then look at updates on a 6-monthly basis. So if I can just draw your attention to point 4 of the paper, as already stated, implementation is progressing within the previously approved programme envelope and current forecasts, and no change to funding is requested at this point or expected. In point 5, I just want to take you through the delivery milestones. So the indicative delivery milestones for the fire control mobilisation system implementation are listed below. The contract was signed in November 2025. Kick-off and initiation is taking place this month. The design complete is due for April 2026. The build and testing of the system, including the host environments, to take place during 2026 and into 2027, with a primary go-live date of October 2027. A secondary control go-live date of October 2027, and the project is due to close also within that month, within 2027. As stated, in terms of governance arrangements, which are at 5.3, 6-monthly reporting will take place via this committee. The report also outlines in point 6 on pages 314 of your bundle some of the risks that have been identified and some of the mitigating factors at this point in time. In terms of the recommendations for this report, the committee is asked to scrutinise the progress, risks and delivery timelines for the fire control system implementation, note the re-baseline milestone dates following signing of the contract and the detailed schedule, and note the implementation remains on plan and within the previously approved programme. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much, Amber. Members, any questions or comments? David.
Thank you, Chair. Without actually seeing CR06 and the risks that's associated with the fire control system implementation, can I have some assurance that the viability of the emergency services network project from the Home Office, or is it yeah, it is Home Office, is actually incorporated into this project? please.
I will take that one away and get you that assurance from the group manager. But yes, I very much anticipate that he works closely with the station manager who's working on that area, and she will form part of the group in terms of who are looking at this, and that will be that link into that group and factored in.
I think that's really important to make sure that it's part of the project. Yeah.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Amber. Any further questions or comments? So that item... Oh, yes, please.
I just wanted to add some reassurance that the new risk event for the implementation and testing of the mobilising system is coming into the Corporate Risk Register in January. So you'll see full insight into that. It'll sit next to the ESN project, but it will be a separate risk event on its own, and we've set it all up, and you'll see that in the full Corporate Risk Register in March. And that the local project risk register for it is also being updated to make sure it feeds in and gives us that higher level. So hopefully that'll add a little bit more assurance.
I really welcome that. Thank you.
That's great, thank you. So that item was for scrutiny. So we move on then to item 15, which is the Corporate Risk Register, and this is the exception report. And Lorna, you're going to lead on this. Thank you.
That's great, thank you, and good afternoon, members. You'll be pleased it's the exception report today, because obviously that makes it a little bit quicker. So I won't go through every paragraph in full detail, but just to ask you that this paper's for scrutiny. You know it comes to you 4 times a year. Today's the exception. You'll get the next full risk register in March. As you know, each risk owner regularly monitors and reports on their risk events that sit within their remit. They make particular focus on how effective their existing controls are against mitigating the likelihood and or impact. And they also consider the present risk environment so that they can come up with a current risk score. We also put a lot of attention to planned actions and any sort of contextual factors that impact how well this risk can be managed. The work that we've been doing on improving the controls and key control indicators means I can confidently say that we've got rid of some of the older listed controls that I would have considered part of the furniture controls, and they are now much more meaningful. And you will see those in full, like I said, in March with the full Corporate Risk Register. So if you can turn to page 318 of your papers, please, where we will look at sort of considering the exceptions. Paragraphs 5.1 to 5.6 provide context on the current position of corporate risks in the service. I won't go through each point now, but obviously happy to answer any questions that you have at the end. I think it's quite important to note that there's no new risk events that have moved out of tolerance since the meeting in September when you had the last full corporate risk register. So section 5.7 presents the 4 corporate risk events with current scores that are out of tolerance. These were reported at this level to this committee on the 19th of September. So I won't go through each of them in full. You've seen those 4 before. They are all getting a lot of scrutiny, a lot of reporting, a lot of focus on planned actions. Happy to address any questions you have about them at the end. You can see that there are 2 where the dotted line in terms of sort of the trend is anticipated to come down in the next 6 months. So CR 15.3 around pension data. There's a lot of work going on in that area, and that risk score should come down. The two ones that relate to finances, CR 19.2 and CR 20.1, they're probably going to remain high, as they should, to make sure that they're getting the scrutiny that they need. And then CR 19.4, which is the work around the 7 Park PFI contract. Progress is going forward on that, and that score should be anticipating coming down within 6 months. So those 4 are familiar to you. They remain as they are at this time with that extra level of scrutiny. So if I move on to section 5.8, here you've got 5 risk events where there have been changes since the September meeting when you had the full corporate risk register. Firstly, CRO 3.3, loss of USAR capability. Now this was increased in score at the October SLT meeting due to the outcome of the assurance visit, with the service determined to get back on track, meet compliance, and be able to reduce that score as soon as possible. We'll give you further update of that in March when you get the full risk register. On page 320, we've got CRO 6.4, loss of control staff, which was actually approved for removal from the CRR in October by the SLT. So recruitment and retention will be managed and monitored via the existing CRO4 around people, capability, capacity and resilience. what we wanted to have is for CRO6, control and mobilising, to be focused on technology, telephony and project risks. So, like I've already said, there's a new risk event coming onto the risk register in the new year around the implementation of the new mobilising system, and there's some really impressive risk assessment and issue assessment work going on in the backgrounds with that. And I met with the station manager yesterday on that project, so fantastic oversight on that. Similarly, CR 18.4, failure to deliver training to staff. This sits under business continuity. This score was decreased and also removed from the corporate risk register because we felt that sort of training to staff was included as part of the ongoing mitigations under the other risk events sitting under CR 18 to ensure that action owners have that capability and understanding. So we didn't need to keep maintaining that separate training risk events. So that's been removed off the corporate risk register. And then finally, two risk events sitting under CR 21, environmental compliance and net zero carbon. Both of these have had their scores increased in October, not necessarily because the risk has necessarily gone up, but because of the re-evaluation by the environment manager, who's now embedded in that role. Firstly, CR 21.2, failure to prevent pollution, was increased from 13 to 15 due to the re-evaluation of the likelihood level. Planned actions are in place to get this score back down by reducing the likelihood. And then CR 21.3, apologies, that should be a 0.3, not a 0.2. CR 21.3, failure to meet net zero carbon goals. That's increased in likelihood due to concerns over meeting our net zero targets, but further evaluation is being undertaken alongside the review of the service's environmental strategy over the next few months. Please also note that CR 21 is being presented as a deep dive to the SLT on the 17th of December, from which time both of these risk events will be aligned to a new environmental risk category, which has been added to the corporate risk register by the SLB. We're hoping to increase sort of environmental and sustainability risks becoming more sort of service-wide and increasing their profile. Okay, so that concludes my presentation of the corporate risk register exception report. Before I sort of open for wider discussion, there are a couple of questions that were submitted by David Powell, our independent member. So firstly, he asked if the service can be confident in its ability to resource mitigation and mitigation actions given financial pressures. So here I'd like to reassure that controls and planned actions are evaluated both on effectiveness and cost implications. So decision making has to be realistic based on our financial practicalities, while also assessing the potential cost of not taking action to mitigate a risk. So scrutiny and oversight that comes from the statutory finance officer as well should add that sort of extra layer of assurance to the members that we're not just coming up with pie in the sky actions and controls. And then secondly, the independent member asked, how does the service know that risk tolerances are still appropriate in the current operating environment? And obviously this is key. And to answer this, risk appetite and tolerance levels were reviewed by the SLB on the 20th of November as part of their commitment to, at least on an annual basis, review the risk appetite and tolerance statement. So they reviewed the levels, and at that time they also added two new risk categories, namely environmental and the organisational culture risk category, which we've been promising this committee that will be coming onto the risk register. Furthermore, on December the 17th, the SLT are having a working session where they'll have the opportunity to review the risk appetite and tolerance levels, so that we need to make sure that they are fit for purpose for each category, and that leaders are being supported with those levels to make sure scrutiny, prioritisation, decision-making and resource allocation is as it should be. So I've got a member briefing with you guys on the 16th of January, where I will be bringing the updated risk appetite and tolerance statement to that session, and the new risk categories, and explaining all of that to you as part of that training session. So I very much look forward to that. So I'll stop talking now. Thank you for listening, and I'd like to open up to any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lorna, and we look forward to that session with you next year. Any questions or comments from members, please? No? Okay, that's great. Thank you very much, Lorna, for all the work you're doing in this area and for presenting to us today. So, members, that was for scrutiny. We'll move on then to item 15. Sorry. 15? 16. And just to say that the date of the next meeting is Thursday, the 12th of March, next year, 2026. Seems a long way away, but I'm sure it will be here very quickly, at 10:30, and that meeting is at Severn Park. Okay, so I just want to thank Matt and Craig especially for, as guests and visitors today for the work you're doing and for presenting to us today. And I'm going to declare this public part of the meeting closed because I need to go on to item 17, which is the exclusion of the